welcome to part 3 of 4 of my Yamaha Blaster restoration project. This video I'm going to be tearing apart this engine and replacing the crank and the rod, oil seals, and hopefully won't run into any more surprises with like the transmission and stuff. So took me a while to get all the parts. Spent a lot of money on these parts too. I mean, if it were like in the beginning where the guy told me I just needed to change the jug, this thing would have been running by now. And you know, it would have been like, for a cheap one, 70 bucks. But the crank isn't that cheap. So I ended up getting a Wiseco Crank Kit. That comes with new bearings, and it also came with all the seals, and it was like $250, I think, so relatively expensive. I had to order some tools to be able to split this crank. So this is, in this bag is a crank splitter. Also got a, this is a puller for the flywheel that's in there. And I've seen a lot of guys using impact screwdrivers, so I picked up one of those, hopefully to keep me from stripping stuff out. And I got one of these too. It's like a soft blow hammer, just in case I need to give something a little gentle persuasion. If you're watching this video for like a how-to video, you know, I'll go through it, but you know, if I forget something or I don't do something right, I apologize in advance. I'm not an expert on engines like this or anything, so this will be my first time tearing into a two-stroke engine, really, much beyond taking a jug off or something, so I'll be learning as I go. So we'll get started tearing this thing apart. So the first thing I'm going to try to take off is the flywheel that's in here. So I'm going to take this shifter lever off first and see about getting that out of the way. Okay, I got this off. You have to take the bolt out all the way because there's a groove right here. So if you just loosen it like I did, it doesn't want to come off. You have to just take the bolt out all the way. Now I can get to these guys. Now I just got to take this nut off here and then get the flywheel puller going. Get that little washer out of there. Now it's time for this guy. This guy will screw left-hand threads. This guy goes down. Guess I'll flip this thing over and work on the other side. Well, that's not the right nut. So somebody replaced that with a, that's a lug nut for a car. Now we'll I'm gonna undo all these various Phillips screws. I already drained the oil out of this back when when the engine was still on the bike, so should be good there. So here's where I came up with to keep all these bolts to hold the side cover on in order. So it might not make any sense to you, but basically I got the bottom front one starting here, which is this guy, and then, you know, it goes around. Here's where the hole for the Kickstarter is. Here's the oil fill, and then these three here are longer ones because they start from up here and go all the way down instead of like this guy right here that should be shorter. So I'm gonna keep them all in order by just keeping them in this piece of cardboard. Surface, I got it popped loose. I'm just using the screwdriver to kind of help it along a little bit. I'm trying to avoid, you know, damaging the surface too much because you don't want to mark it up. It might cause a leak that you didn't already have. There we are. So I gotta take the clutch off here. So I got all these little spring screws and this center screw out of the clutch. There it goes finally. That clutch broke free. It was spinning. So this was that little washer I was talking about. See how it's all chewed up. So I think somebody's been in here before. Little washer. So if I'm looking at this later, this little washer goes on before this thing. This is the gear for the Kickstarter. And this part of the spring goes into this pocket. This little piece of metal here goes on this ledge. So then when you want to put it back in, you just, I guess, do that. And then you take this part of the spring, wrap it around, and stick this back in that hole there. So that's easy enough. Now, I don't know, I guess I could take this off, this wheel. So it looks like we need some snap ring pliers. Got my snap ring pliers. And we'll just go ahead and move that snap ring without breaking it. It's a washer and a washer. So, this was on there like that. So, I think since there's a washer on either side, I'm just going to take this zip tie, put the zip tie through, and do that. And therefore, everything will stay together how it's supposed to be. I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna try to take off this, which I believe is for like a counterbalancing shaft. That's why it has timing marks in it. So when we put this back together, we'll make sure those marks line up, so the balancing shaft is actually in sync. And there's a little tab in here that I need to bend back over, because it's like a locking washer to keep this from coming loose, I imagine. So Okay, we'll take this guy off. Let's see here. Don't have any washers underneath. All I have is this washer here, which is like a washer with a keyway in it, and then it has, you bend the tab to lock the nut and a keyway. So I just pulled the key out of this side now, the crank gear. I got this little baggie I'm keeping the tiny parts in, like those snap rings and the keys, because they'll probably get lost somehow floating around in that box. And let's see. Oh yeah, it comes right off. So no washers under it. Or is this a washer? What's this? This. Okay, so big gear, the wide gear, the thin gear, and then that thing that goes into the seal. Got them zip tied around each other so I can't. They'll go together. All right. I guess I'll take this keeper off and this keeper off. I don't know if I need to or not, but I'll take them off anyway. Well, at least gotta take this one off if I'm gonna change that oil seal. Did the trick. So I skipped ahead a little bit. I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, so I started struggling with some stuff, so I figured there's no point in recording it. But I got the case split apart, and I had some trouble. I'm not sure. I think this bearing probably was supposed to come off with the shaft or stay in the case on this side, but it didn't. So I think this was hanging on while I was trying to split the case apart, and I couldn't see inside where there's like a clip or anything, so I'm not sure what was going on. But anyway, this bearing stayed on there. Made it a little difficult for me to split the case because it was hanging on, and then finally this came out of the case. So now I'm in the process of replacing the bearings. Here's one of the crank bearings right here, and it had some catches in it, and there's some metal in there, you know, from it doesn't spin very nicely. So I got new bearings with the crank kit. So I just gotta pop a new bearing in here, knock the one out of this case half and replace it, and then I can put the thing back together, I guess, so with the crank in there, obviously. So I got the old Wiseco bearings. Looks like one's bigger than the other, so I got the bigger one here. Make sure there's no dirt or anything in this hole. Now, this is what I'm not sure if this is advisable. Like I said before, I'm not a professional two-stroke engine rebuilder, but this is how I got the old one. Oh. As I was saying, I'm not a professional two-stroke rebuilder, so this could potentially warp the case half a little bit. I don't know, but I'm just gonna put a little heat around this thing. Again, don't know if this is advisable, but this is gonna help me get this bearing in, because I don't want to have to hit this thing hard enough to like crack the case, you know. So Just gonna warm it up a little bit before I try putting this bearing in. Alright, so in the process of me driving that bearing into the other case, which I don't even know, there might be like a special tool that presses those in. I don't know. I got it in and I didn't crack anything, so I'm pretty happy about that. But anyway, while I was driving it in, I kind of shook loose the entire transmission, so it took me a minute to figure out how that goes back together. So popping those old oil seals out of this side of the case. I don't know how professionals change these bearings, if they got some sort of special way to do it, and it's highly against the rules to heat up the case like this, but I'm just gonna do it anyway, because I already did it to the other side. You never want to drive a bearing by the inside race. Like, if you're going to drive a bearing, you don't want to hit it here. You want to hit it on the outside edge. So I got an axle nut socket here that fits the outside edge just perfect. So use that hammer and drove it in. Okay, I'm getting ready to slam this case back together, but before I do that, I'm just gonna take a little oil and I'm just gonna go ahead and put a little oil where everything slides together, just so nothing starts dry when you first go to start it. Everything should be pre-oiled. I don't know if there's like a recommended lubrication assembly lube, but I just got some Lucas, which is like a really thick oil basically. So I'm just gonna put some of that in here because I figure that'll stick. I don't have any special assembly lube. I thought about maybe pre-oiling these crank bearings with a little 2-cycle oil, but I figured this probably won't hurt it. So, and this will be easier because it'll stick in there. Making one last check to make sure I don't have any oil on the mating surface. Before I put the case bond on. So this is what I got to seal the case back up. I know Yamaha makes their own special case sealer called Yamabond, but where I was looking, that wasn't available, so I got this. I looked up some forums, and a lot of people said they've used this stuff, so I figured I'd use it as well. Apply as thinly and evenly as possible using a brush or a putty knife. Wait approximately 1 minute, then mate the two surfaces. Alright, I think I got the case together. It's not fully together, but I don't know if something's keeping it cracked open a little. I was having trouble with that one shifting fork pin, kept falling out of its spot, and I had to take it apart. And I think it went down on there this time, but I'm not sure. So I guess I'm going to have to put a couple screws in it. Looks like it's together all the way. Yeah. She's together finally. Alright, I got my case all back together, and very concerned about the transmission not working. So here's the little shifter detent star. So every time you shift it with the foot shifter, it turns this, which inside there turns a shift drum that has two forks that follow in grooves on it. And this particular transmission has 6 gears. And so I made sure it went through all the gears, has neutral. It was a little tight. It didn't spin very freely, but it was because this bearing over here for the output shaft wasn't seated all the way. So I just took my rubber mallet and gave this guy a love tap, and now it spins really nicely. Has all its gears. I don't have any oil seeping out of the bottom because remember I pre-oiled all the bearings and stuff in here, and so I think the Yamaha bond or the case sealer is sealing up. The crank spins around nice and free, so that's good. So I think if I can get this now I think I'm down to the easy part. I just gotta put all the gears back in here and put the rest of the engine back together. Probably clean it up a little bit. I know the block's a little dirty, so getting close. All I gotta do is start putting the gears and stuff back on here. Okay, it's been a minute since I last worked on this. I've decided the piston I had for that Chinese top end kit. A lot of people are saying those blow apart almost sometimes on first startup and will basically ruin the entire engine. So I went ahead and ordered a better piston. I got a Wiseco forged piston, standard bore, whatever I could find on Amazon. So anyway, so it's been a while, so I'm a little fuzzy on how all this goes back together now, but I got everything zip tied up the way it came apart, I believe. This little sleeve goes on the crankshaft first. I believe it might be meant to slide into that seal, I would think. Put a little oil on it. There it goes. Alright. And then where's our key? Put our key back in the crank. That goes on. This goes on. There we are. Been putting a little Loctite on the threads just to keep anything from coming loose. Just some blue Loctite. Don't know if that's recommended or not, but I know these two-stroke engines make a lot of vibrations, and it's kind of stuff that could make these things come loose. Don't tell me I should have. So I can sneak that in here. I got my two dots lined up. I just realized I had the crank gear on here upside down. This bolt has a special washer, or this gear has a special washer. Takes this bolt here. I got my dots lined up. I found the torque spec online. I'm going to try to see if I can get these to tighten down. Okay, I found that if you take an old piece of cardboard and roll it up enough times, it is strong enough to hold the gears together while you torque these nuts down. Then you take this little washer it's got on here. And it locks into the place for it locks into the slot in the shaft, and then you take that washer and bend it over into the nut to lock in so that this bolt can't come loose now. It's going to stay where it's at. Alright, so next thing I'm going to put on is the gear that goes right here, I guess. So I know this one of these snap rings was on there first. Snap ring pliers out. Make sure this gets into its groove. Yep, there it goes. One washer. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it was used to be like that. Oil on this guy. Is this washer? Or that. Then another washer. Make sure that's in its groove. There it goes. Almost forgot to put this cover back on here. Time to put this clutch on here. So I kept everything in order as it came off, so I can have a shot at getting this back together right. So I got this little thin washer first. Okay. I don't know if it matters the orientation of this or not. Let's see. Marks. Okay. This guy. That guy. Some metal ring here. Great. I also made a gigantic mistake, and I ended up when I was trying to torque this nut down, I tried putting a couple of screws in here and holding it, which I don't know what I was thinking. That was a stupid idea, but I ended up breaking off one of this. That little washer in there is really difficult to get bent over. I don't know if there's like a special tool. I got this nut on here. I think there's some sort of clutch adjustment. A dot here, and there's a dot on here, so I imagine they're supposed to line up. So I lined them up. Alright, so since I busted off one of those pegs on the clutch basket, I had to order a new one. But I'm getting ready to get this thing back in the four-wheeler so I can put it together. I should have a new one of these by Friday. It's not going to work with this one missing, because when you hit the clutch, the whole thing kind of cocks over like this. It doesn't push out flat. So yeah, that was my mistake. So don't try to put your screwdriver in here like this while you tighten up that center bolt, because that'll just break right off apparently. But you know, I've never had one of these together or one of these apart before, so you know, it's a learning experience. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the cover on here to keep everything protected, and then I'm just going to go start putting the rest of the engine together so I can get it ready to throw back on the bike, and I can change this out when it's on the bike. I'll just put a couple screws to hold the cover on. I won't put them all in. That way when the thing gets here, I'll just pop the cover off, replace it, and then we'll be ready to ride, hopefully.